Detroit Lions 42, Denver Broncos 17. Lions move to 10-4. Broncos fall to 7-7. Another one of those teams in that mix, in that range. They're tied with the Steelers for the 10-11 seeds there in the AFC. But the Lions, big bounce back for them. They'd had a rough loss last week against the Chicago Bears, but it's a weird year with those types of games, right, Sam, where a lot of good teams are just laying an egg, but for the most part, they will bounce back and play well, and that's what the Lions did. Really owned the line of scrimmage, dominated up front, really clean game for Jared Goff. He ends up with 278 passing yards and 5 touchdowns on just 34 attempts. The Lions, you say this a lot. I mean, the Niners are the clear, when they're on, they're the best team. But when the Lions are on, it is pretty special what they can do.
Yeah, and it's not even like, they're not like Dallas earlier in the year where they have a clear trend of they only beat bad teams or they only do well at home or in a dome or whatever it is. The Lions, when you look at their losses, right? Okay, on the road against Chicago, Justin Fields, that's one of those ones that sort of makes sense as a potential trap game for any team. The Ravens game, though, was at home, right? The Ravens game was on the road, but the Seahawks game was at home. That, and then the Packers game on Thanksgiving. Again, that was at home. Even some of their losses don't make a ton of sense. But I've been meaning to bring this up for a while, that the Lions were on this run of they don't go outdoors until the playoffs again. So if you're looking at this team and saying this is not a team tremendously well set up to go outdoors in December and get the tough, ugly weather games, well, they don't have to anymore. So if you're saying this is a flat track type of team, they need the dome, they need the speed, they need the good weather, they're going to get it all the way until postseason football play. And this was another one of those games, and this was them at their best. Jahmyr Gibbs making plays. Gibbs started to look like he was justifying the top overall or the top first-round draft pick the moment they dropped the pretense of offensive gimmick and just played him as a running back. And he said, hey, he's really fast and explosive, and if we have a good offensive line and a good offense overall, if we just give this guy touches, he'll make plays.
Yeah, but I think, I tweeted this out the other day too. Highest yards per carry since week 7. It's Jaylen Warren and then Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery.
Right.
I think there's something to the two-headed monster of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. And I'll repeat, too, it's not as simple as I like that the Lions aren't justifying Gibbs by giving him 20, 25 carries. And I will also say, I said this a few weeks back, whatever the Titans thought they were going to be 5 or 6 years ago when they said, we're going to have exotic smash mouth, which sounded great on paper. We're going to have all different types of run concepts. We're just going to win up front. We're going to have explosive plays and power plays. We're going to run downhill and run outside. This is the Lions. What an incredible running game. I mean, even just the wrinkles that they add to their outside zone blocking scheme, it felt like nothing, not taking any credit away from Gibbs or Montgomery, but there were so many times, usually on the outside blocking scheme, you hit the outside path and you're usually cutting downhill, right? Because most of the time the front side doesn't have the cleanest blocking pattern. They're usually playing, the defense is setting it up for you to cut back essentially most of the time on an outside zone play. And that's fine. That's what it's designed to do. I've never seen so many plays where the running back just stayed on his initial path because the front side was wide open. And then when you get Gibbs into the open field, yeah, he is a playmaker. And David Montgomery has become a more explosive, bigger play type of back than he has been in the past. So it's really incredible. And the other stat that I dug up is Penei Sewell at right tackle, 93-plus run blocking grade so far this year. That's on pace. Remember, Trent Williams broke the record for a tackle in 2021. Penei Sewell has the second best grade we've seen since 2009 from a run blocking perspective. I know the Lions have had some just rough losses over the last month and a half. But man, when they are on, it is #fun to watch because that run game is explosive. And then the pass game and everything that they're able to do schematically. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a huge game. Sam Laporta had 3 touchdowns. He continues to be an incredible find. And you're right about Gibbs, man. Look, the Lions drafted, I think, 4 really good football players, including Gibbs at 12. I am willing to rethink the whole running back thing in the first round in certain situations, but also in situations where I'm at least getting an explosive playmaker, where it's a Gibbs. I think Bijan Robinson would put up these types of numbers, right? If they did get Bijan rather than Gibbs in the first round, which they were tempted to do, I think, where they were picking. So, man, I'm just real impressed with the Lions, especially when everything's clicking. They are really tough to stop.
Yeah, they are. Do you remember last year they had a game, was it against the Vikings, where it felt like Ben Johnson was just a step ahead of the defensive coordinator for the entire game? Every single thing he did was one step ahead, and the Vikings were never able to counter, and they were just getting like, boom, shot to the right, boom, like they just kept walking into each punch. This was one of those games this year. Like from step one, the Lions and Ben Johnson, from a play calling and schematic point of view, were just ahead of Denver, and Denver never got back and recovered. Everything they were doing was just setting up the next shot, and they were never able to counter it. And it was like there was a point in the sideline where Sean Payton is just screaming at Russell Wilson, and it felt like an entire game's worth of frustration. Like, this wasn't one thing that Russell Wilson screwed up. This is just like, we are getting wrecked from play number one in this game, and I am taking it out on you individually right now. Like, that's what happened.
It's also one of those games when you talk about a whole season, and do you focus on recent trends, or does the whole season of data matter? Because the Broncos have been two different defenses this entire season, right? But does the early season mishaps, how as bad as they were, do those matter in the grand scheme of it? This was a throwback to the first 5-6 weeks of the season when the Broncos were historically bad defense. They just got wrecked, really on both sides of the ball here. So impressive win by the Lions. They moved to 10-4. Didn't realize they have this funky end of the season schedule where they have to play the Vikings 2 out of the next 3 weeks, and with the Dallas Cowboys sandwiched in between. So the 10-4 Lions creeping even closer to a division title. First one since 1993. I think if they beat the Vikings, that should clinch it, right, this weekend? I would think. We'll talk about all the clinching scenarios, though, on the
Kornacki show.
Man, Kornacki. That's what we'll do on the Thursday show. We'll cut to him with all the scenarios going forward, the clinching scenarios, not just the breakdown of where people are right now.